Let me ask you something uncomfortable. If something went wrong with your heart right now, and no one was around, would anyone even notice in time?
Not tomorrow. Not when it's too late. But today.
Because this is how it often begins.
A quiet morning.
No sirens.
No dramatic collapse.
Just a 67-year-old man standing alone in his kitchen, flipping a slice of toast.
He slept fine.
He feels mostly fine. There's a slight pressure in his chest. Nothing sharp, nothing alarming. The kind of discomfort you brush off and blame on age.
Or stress.
Or last night's dinner. He pours his coffee. His hand trembles, just a little. He tells himself, I'll sit down after breakfast. 5 minutes pass. The pressure grows heavier, like someone slowly tightening a belt around his chest.
Breathing feels different. Not painful. Just harder. He doesn't panic. Not yet.
Because here's the dangerous part no one talks about. Most heart attacks don't begin with panic.
They begin with doubt.
Doubt that anything serious is happening. Doubt that this is worth calling for help. He thinks of his kids, busy, living in another state. He thinks, I don't want to overreact.
And in that moment,
while the house stays quiet, while the street outside looks completely normal, his heart is already struggling. Not enough to knock him down. Not enough to make him scream. Just enough to slowly steal his clarity. Because a heart attack doesn't usually take your life first.
It takes your time. It takes your judgment.
It takes your ability to make the right decision when it matters most. And this is the part that should stop you cold. Thousands of people over 60 don't die because help didn't exist. They die because in the first crucial minutes,
they were alone.
And they didn't know what to do. Or they waited just a little too long. In the next few moments, I'm going to show you what actually happens inside the body during those first minutes. And why the right knowledge, even before pain becomes unbearable, can quietly decide whether someone survives. Or becomes another story no one ever hears about.
Stay with me.
Because what you're about to learn isn't about fear. It's about buying yourself time.
When time is the one thing your heart can afford to lose.
Here's the truth most people never hear in a doctor's office. When someone dies from a heart attack while they're alone, it's rarely because the heart stopped instantly. It's because no one was there to interrupt the slow collapse. A heart attack doesn't usually begin as a sudden shutdown. It begins as a progressive failure, minute by minute. At first, the heart struggles to push enough blood forward. Oxygen levels start to drop, not just in the heart muscle, but in the brain. And the brain is the first thing to suffer. That's why people don't scream for help. That's why they don't always call 911 right away. Within minutes, the brain becomes foggy.
Thoughts feel distant.
Simple decisions, like dialing a number, standing up or unlocking a door, suddenly feel complicated. This is where being alone becomes deadly. Because there's no one to say,
you don't look right. Now, this isn't nothing. Sit down. Call now.
Instead, the person begins to negotiate with themselves.
Let me wait a minute.
Maybe it will pass. I don't want to be embarrassed if it's nothing. That waiting is what costs lives. Medical research shows that the first 5 to 10 minutes of a heart attack are not about pain. They are about blood flow and oxygen. During this window, the heart muscle is starving, but not yet dead. The brain is impaired, but not yet unconscious.
There is still time.
But here's the frightening part. As oxygen drops, the body doesn't sound an alarm.
It turns the volume down. You don't feel sharper. You feel calmer. Slower.
Less urgent. That false sense of calm is not relief. It's your brain losing the ability to react appropriately. And once that happens, people don't take action.
They freeze.
This is why heart attacks that happen alone are so dangerous. Not because help can't save you, but because you may not act while you still can. By the time symptoms feel serious enough, coordination may already be slipping away. Standing becomes harder.
Speech becomes slower.
And walking across the room can feel impossible. This is why survival doesn't depend on strength. It depends on preparation. The people who survive heart attacks alone aren't stronger.
They aren't luckier.
They simply understand one critical principle. A heart attack is not something you fight. It's something you manage, minute by minute, until help arrives.
And everything you do next, every small decision,
is not about fixing your heart. It's about buying time. Because time is what keeps oxygen flowing.
Time is what keeps you conscious.
Time is what keeps you alive long enough to be found. In the next section, I'm going to show you the single mindset shift that changes everything.
The moment where panic turns into action.
And why the right response in those early minutes can make survival possible, even when you're completely alone. At this point, most people ask the wrong question. They ask, what do I do to stop a heart attack? But that's not the question that saves lives. Because when a heart attack begins, you are not trying to fix your heart. You are not trying to cure anything. You are not trying to be brave or tough. You are trying to stay alive long enough for help to reach you.
That's it. This is the shift almost no one makes in time.
A heart attack is not a single moment.
It's a race.
On one side, oxygen deprivation, blood clots, failing heart muscle. On the other, emergency response, medication, oxygen, trained hands. Your job, especially when you're alone, is to slow the race down. To stretch minutes into opportunities. To turn 10 fragile minutes into 15 survivable ones. This is why people who did everything right sometimes don't survive. And people who made calm, simple choices often do. They weren't fighting the heart attack. They were buying time. Every correct action you take in the early minutes does one of three things. It helps oxygen reach your brain.
It reduces the workload on your heart.
Or it makes it easier for help to find you quickly.
Nothing more. Nothing less.
That's also why complicated advice fails in emergencies. When oxygen drops, your brain doesn't want instructions. It wants simple decisions it can execute without thinking. This is why the next steps I'm going to share are not medical lectures. They are survival decisions, presented in the exact order your body will allow you to make them.
Not all at once.
Not perfectly. Just enough to keep you conscious. Just enough to keep blood moving. Just enough to keep the door open, literally and figuratively, until help arrives. And here's the most important thing to understand before we go any further.
You don't need to remember everything. You don't need to be calm.
You don't need to be fearless. You only need to recognize what's happening early enough.
To start buying time. Because once you do that, even when you're alone,
survival becomes possible. In the next section, we'll start with the very first decision that matters.
The one most people miss.
And why waiting just a little longer is often the most dangerous choice of all. The first thing a heart attack takes from you isn't your strength. It's your clarity. People imagine heart attacks as overwhelming pain. But in the beginning, what most people feel is confusion. You know something isn't right. But you can't quite explain it.
Your thoughts slow down. Your hands feel clumsy.
Even holding a phone suddenly feels awkward. This is why the first decision matters more than any medication. You must stay connected, before your brain fades further. When oxygen levels drop, the brain doesn't shut off all at once. It loses small abilities first. You might forget your address. You might struggle to find the right words. You might stare at your phone and think, what was I about to do? And that's where many people lose precious minutes. They wait until they're sure. They wait until the pain is undeniable. But certainty doesn't come before danger. It comes after damage has already begun.
The people who survive heart attacks alone don't wait for proof.
They act on suspicion. The moment something feels off, not unbearable, not dramatic, just wrong. They create a connection to the outside world.
They don't plan a perfect call.
They don't explain everything clearly. They just make sure someone else is aware that something is happening. Because once that connection exists, you are no longer truly alone. Even if your words become slow. Even if you can't stand. Even if you can't think straight.
Connection buys time.
That's why preparation matters before an emergency. Not because you'll remember complex instructions. But because your future self may not be able to think at all. This is why information should be written down, not stored in memory. This is why one-button calls matter. This is why wearable alert devices only work if they're actually worn.
When coordination fades, simplicity saves lives. One button. One call. One alert.
And here's the part most people underestimate. Making that connection early doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're alive enough to act.
If it turns out to be nothing, you go back to your day.
If it's something serious, you've already done the hardest part.
You've broken the isolation.
And once isolation is broken, survival odds rise dramatically. In the next section, we're going to talk about what happens next. When panic tries to take over. And how one small physical action can prevent your heart from working against you in the most dangerous moments. After you've made that first connection, after help knows something is wrong. Your body does what it has always done in danger. It panics.
Your heart races.
Your breathing becomes fast and shallow. Your muscles tense, preparing you to stand, move, do something. This reaction evolved to help us escape threats. But during a heart attack, it does the opposite. When you panic, your heart demands more oxygen. At the exact moment, it's already struggling to get enough. It's like stepping on the gas while the engine is overheating. This is why people instinctively make things worse without realizing it. They pace the room. They try to walk it off. They take rapid, shallow breaths, thinking they're getting more air. But fast breathing doesn't mean effective breathing. In fact, it lowers the amount of oxygen your heart and brain actually receive. So here's the second decision that saves lives. You do not follow your body into panic.
You slow it down. Not by forcing calm.
Not by telling yourself everything is fine. But by controlling the one system you still have access to.
Your breath. When you slow your breathing, you send a signal back to your nervous system.
A signal that says, stand down. Heart rate begins to ease. Blood pressure stabilizes. The heart's oxygen demand decreases. And suddenly, you're no longer fighting your own body. Here's the breathing pattern that works when nothing else does. Breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Let your belly expand, not your chest. Hold that breath for 4 seconds. Then breathe out through pursed lips for 6 seconds, slow and steady. That longer exhale is the key. It tells your nervous system that the emergency response can quiet down. You don't need to do this perfectly. You don't need to count exactly. You just need to make the exhale longer than the inhale. This simple rhythm does something remarkable. It keeps oxygen moving. It prevents your heart rate from spiraling. And most importantly, it helps keep you conscious. People who use this technique aren't stronger. They're not braver. They're simply giving their heart a better chance to keep working until help arrives. And here's something important to remember. Feeling calmer doesn't mean the danger has passed. It means you've bought yourself more time. In the next section, we'll talk about the medication almost everyone has heard of, but very few people use correctly, and how the right approach can make a critical difference in those early minutes. At some point, a familiar thought crosses the mind.
Should I take something?
Almost everyone has heard the same advice at some point in their life. Take aspirin during a heart attack. And that advice is correct, but dangerously incomplete. Because during an emergency, how you take aspirin matters almost as much as whether you take it at all. Here's what most people do.
They swallow a pill. They wait.
They hope it works. But swallowing is slow. And during a heart attack, slow can cost heart muscle. Aspirin doesn't work like a painkiller.
It doesn't calm discomfort.
It doesn't make symptoms disappear. What it does is far more important. It makes your blood less sticky. During most heart attacks, a blood clot is blocking a coronary artery. Aspirin helps keep that clot from growing larger, and sometimes allows just enough blood to squeeze past. But only if it gets into your bloodstream quickly. And here's the mistake many people make. They swallow the tablet whole. When you swallow aspirin, it has to travel to the stomach, dissolve, and then be absorbed. That takes time you may not have. But when you chew aspirin, something different happens. The medication begins absorbing through the lining of your mouth almost immediately. It reaches your bloodstream faster, when minutes matter most. That's why, during a suspected heart attack, the goal isn't comfort.
It's speed.
1 regular strength aspirin, or 4 baby aspirins, chewed thoroughly. Yes, it tastes unpleasant.
Yes, it feels wrong.
But that bitter taste is often the taste of time being saved. This is not about making pain go away. It's about slowing the damage until help arrives. And there's something else many people don't realize. If you already take a daily low-dose aspirin, that preventive dose is not enough in an emergency. An acute event requires an acute response. Of course, aspirin isn't for everyone.
If you're allergic, you don't take it.
If your doctor has specifically told you not to, you follow that advice. But for many people over 60, aspirin is one of the simplest ways to buy crucial minutes. And notice the pattern here. This decision doesn't replace calling for help. It doesn't replace emergency care. It works alongside everything you've already done, staying connected, controlling your breathing, staying conscious. Each step stacks on the one before it. Each one buys a little more time. In the next section, we're going to talk about something that feels almost too simple to matter.
Your body position.
And why lying down the wrong way can silently make everything worse.
When pain or weakness hits, the instinct is simple. Lie down.
Most people believe lying flat will help them rest, recover, catch their breath. But during a heart attack, the wrong position can quietly make things worse. When you lie flat on your back, gravity no longer helps your circulation. Blood returning to the heart increases pressure at the exact moment your heart is already struggling. Breathing can become harder. Fluid can begin to back up toward the lungs. Oxygen levels may drop without you even realizing it. This is why the next decision is about how you place your body, not how you push through discomfort. The goal is not comfort. The goal is to reduce the workload on your heart. The safest position, while you are conscious, is a supported seated position. Sit upright at about a 45-degree angle. Use a wall, a couch, or pillows to support your back. Keep your knees bent and your feet flat if possible. This position allows gravity to assist blood flow, makes breathing easier, and reduces the strain on your heart muscle. It's a small change, but it makes a measurable difference.
As you sit, loosen anything restrictive. Unbutton your collar. Loosen your belt.
Remove tight clothing around the chest or waist. These aren't comfort measures. They help improve oxygen flow and make breathing more efficient. If at any point you begin to feel faint or dizzy, if the room starts to spin or your vision narrows, do not try to stay upright at all costs. That's when you lower yourself carefully.
Do not collapse.
Use furniture or walls to guide yourself down, slowly.
Once on the floor, turn onto your side, not onto your back. The side, lying recovery position keeps your airway open.
And reduces the risk of choking if nausea or vomiting occurs, which is common during heart attacks. This position isn't dramatic. It doesn't feel heroic. But it protects you when your body becomes weaker than your intentions. And here's something important to remember. Every movement during a heart attack costs energy. The goal is not to move less out of fear, but to move intentionally. Sit when sitting helps. Lie down only when necessary, and in the right way. Because when your heart is under attack, even gravity should be working on your side. In the next section, we'll talk about a decision that has nothing to do with your body at all, but has saved more lives than many medications. It's about access. And it's about what happens when help arrives, but can't reach you. By this point, most people believe the hardest part is over. Help has been called. The breathing is controlled. Medication has been taken. The body is positioned correctly. And yet, this is where lives are still lost. Not because the heart suddenly fails, but because help can't reach the person in time. This is the mistake almost no one thinks about until it's too late. Locked doors. Emergency responders arrive quickly. They know what to do. They have the equipment. But they're standing outside. Every minute spent forcing entry, searching for keys, or breaking a door, is a minute the heart and brain don't have. This is why the next decision should happen early, while you still have strength and coordination.
Unlock the door.
If you can, open it slightly.
Turn on the lights inside your home.
During the day, make your house visible. At night, make it impossible to miss. These actions don't require strength. They require timing. Because once weakness sets in, walking to the door may no longer be possible. If you live in an apartment or building, alert someone who can guide help to you.
A front desk. A neighbor.
Security. Even a short phone call can save minutes. And minutes matter more than most people realize. There's another step that makes an enormous difference.
Medical information. Emergency responders don't know you.
They don't know your medications, allergies, or conditions. When that information is visible, taped inside the door, on the refrigerator, or in an obvious place, treatment happens faster.
Less goosing.
Less delay. This isn't about preparing for death. It's about clearing the path for rescue. Because a heart attack doesn't end when the ambulance arrives. It ends when treatment begins. And treatment can't begin if access is blocked. This decision doesn't feel urgent in the moment. There's no pain attached to it.
No sensation pushing you to act.
But it may be the single action that determines whether all the other steps you've taken actually matter. In the final section, we're going to bring everything together.
Not with fear,
but with a reminder of why preparation is an act of strength, not weakness. If there's one idea I want to leave you with, it's this. Preparation is not fear. Fear freezes people. Preparation sets them free. Everything we've talked about today isn't about expecting the worst. It's about respecting reality. Heart attacks don't send invitations. They don't wait for perfect timing. And they don't always look the way we expect. They arrive quietly.
In ordinary moments.
When no one else is around. But that doesn't mean you're powerless. Power doesn't come from strength in those moments. It comes from decisions made before clarity fades. Staying connected. Slowing your breathing. Using medication correctly.
Positioning your body wisely. Clearing the path for help.
None of these require heroics. None require medical training. They require something much simpler.
Awareness.
And awareness is something you can carry with you every day. Without anxiety.
Without obsession.
Without fear. Think of preparation the same way you think of a seatbelt. You don't put it on because you plan to crash.
You put it on because you value your life. Because you value time.
Because you value the people who count on you being here tomorrow. Most people never imagine they'll face a heart attack alone.
Until they do.
And the difference between panic and possibility is often just a few quiet decisions made in the right order. If this information helps you someday, I hope you never need it.
But if you do,
I hope it gives you calm instead of confusion, action instead of fear, and time instead of regret. And if you think of someone you care about while hearing this,
someone who lives alone, someone over 50,
someone who might dismiss early warning signs,
share this with them.
Not as a warning,
but as a gift.
Because preparation isn't about expecting danger. It's about choosing life.